and XML and base class library. Actually, we discussed it about, as a base class library or framework class library. Then we discussed about the common language runtime, then operating system. This is a Visual Studio .NET is nothing but a integrated development environment for developing the .NET applications. So Visual Studio is a tool, that's it. It's nothing to do, it's a development tool. Normally in our earlier days, if you want us to write a program either in C or C++, we used to go into edit mode. We used to go to editor and then type the code and then compile, then run. We have a lot of steps there. But Visual Studio is an integrated development environment where you can go and develop the application, compile the application, and run the application. So it's integrated development environment kind of thing. And with the Visual Studio, the development effort has come less. Like you don't need to there is a form, Windows form you want to design. Earlier days, 10 years back, before Visual Studio comes into picture, I need to go and write everything manually. Like for creating one form itself, I used to write 80 to 90 lines of code in earlier technologies. But now with the Visual Studio, everything is a drag and drop. That's just an integrated development environment for developing the .NET applications. That is the Visual Studio .NET component. So yesterday we discussed about the CLR. That is the main important part in our .NET framework. We'll discuss more about the CLR. So CLR, as we discussed yesterday, CLR is the main component where it will convert your programming language instructions into the machine level instructions. That is the main part. CLR will, even though you develop the technology with your application using VB.NET, ASP.NET, all this, you use the base class library features and everything, you develop your application and your application is ready to run. But without CLR, you will not be able to run your application, because your application, whatever is developed, is in C#.NET, but machine level language is different. C#.NET, your machine cannot understand your C#.NET. It's a machine level language only. Maybe if you go back to your BTech or earlier days, there is a assembly level programming like LDAP, LDAR. There are commands like this, and you need to go and write it in assembly level language if you want your system to understand that. But so it's not possible to understand C#.NET or VB.NET for operating system. So with the help of CLR, what CLR will do is CLR will convert your programming language, whatever the language you are developing instructions, into the machine level, operating system level instruction format. So that is why in our .NET, there are two steps in compilation. First, you will write the source code, then you will compile it. Once you compile it, it will be converted into MSIL format. This is called as Microsoft Intermediate Language format. Once you compile your code, this will be converted into MSIL format. I'll show you just whatever we have done yesterday. What is this MSIL code for the code for the same whatever we have done yesterday? We'll see that now. Yesterday I developed one application for currency exchange or something like, I think it's for credit card validation. Open project, yesterday one, I'm taking it. Once I compile my code, at the end it will either the code will be converted into the .exe format or .dll format. Once I compile my application, after developing my code, if I go and compile it, it will be converted either into the .dll, dynamic link library format, or .exe format. I'll show you. This is an application, so it will be converted into a .exe format. whatever installations you are doing it on your machine, everything, all the applications are in the exe format only, .exe format only. When debug, this is the, at the end I am going to get this. You can run this and see. This application. Credit card number is not. So this is the application. Once I compile my application, code will be converted into .exe format or .dll format. So once it is converted into .exe or .dll format, that will be there in the form of intermediate language, MSIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language. There is a tool called ILDSM where you can go and look at the code what is generating. ILDASM. This is a tool where you can go and check your MSIL code. See, this is the code which is generated through the MSIL. Button click, I have written something, right? So this is the MSIL code. Actually, the code which I have written is here. On button click, this is the code I have written. But once I compile it, it's converted into this format. This is Microsoft Intermediate Language. It looks like a machine level language, but it's not. It's an intermediate language. But my operating system can understand only the machine level language. So we will convert that into MSIL into the machine level language. That is nothing but the CLR. There is a component called as CLR, Common Language Runtime, which converts MSIL into the machine level or operating system level instructions. So CLR is the main component. Even though you develop your application using .NET, without this CLR component, you cannot run it on the machine, any other machine. So it is a part of .NET framework. When you go and install, like you can install from Google directly, .NET, Google it and Microsoft site, you can directly install .NET framework. So along with that, you are getting the CLR also. You can go and get it, .NET Framework 4.0. See, you can go and download it. Download Microsoft .NET Framework. It will give you all these concepts or components, whatever you are seeing here. Common Language Runtime also. So Common Language Runtime, yesterday while we were discussing, I have shown three components inside CLR, that is CLS, CTS and just-in-time compiler. These are the three components of CLR. CLR, inside CLR we have CLS, CTS and just-in-time compiler. CLS is nothing but Common Language Specification. These are nothing but the set of rules each and every programming language needs to follow if you want to use .NET Framework as your runtime environment. Like if you want to run your application through .NET Framework, your programming language, whatever you are developing, that should meet all these rules, Common Language Specifications. Suppose by default, Microsoft languages are supporting this, Common Language Specifications or rules. But tomorrow I want to go and invent something called XYZ language, XYZ programming language. But I don't want to go and develop a pure, I don't want to go and develop a runtime environment again. And I want to use existing .NET Framework as my runtime environment. Then I have to meet all these specifications, set of specifications provided by the .NET Framework. CLS, Common Language Specifications. So the other one is CTS, that is nothing but the common type system, where these are the common types available in .NET framework to support multiple languages. Suppose if you go and look at your C programming, you are declaring integer and int A, int B, a variable declaration. You are doing it as int A, int B, int C, float A, char A, something like that. You are declaring, you are using that data types. But if you go to VB6, you will declare an variable as integer. The data type is integer. Type is integer, not int. In C++ it is int, VB it is integer. Some other technology, that guy may go and declare it as int number or something. The data type he give it as int number. Int number means integer number. But at the end, whatever the types you are defining in your programming language, if you want to use .NET framework, you have to use the CTS types only. At the end, whether it is int or integer or int number, it should be convertible into the CTS types. CTS types means int 32, 32-bit integer, int 16, 16-bit integer. So here CTS is nothing but the common types available in .NET framework to support multiple languages. Cross platform. Like if you go and look at this, VB.NET, C#, J#, even though you go in VB.NET, we declare an integer number as integer, dim A as integer. C++ you declare it as int A. C# also you declare it as int A. But once you compile your application, it should be in a CTS type, int 32 format only. Suppose float, decimal, we have different data types, but CTS types are different. So these are common for all. That's why we are telling the .NET is a language interoperable. That means VB.NET code, you can go and use it in C#.NET. C#.NET code, whatever you are written, that can be used in VB.NET. Because once you compile your application, it's not C#.NET or VB.NET. It's a CTS types. Common types, system types. So these are nothing but the set of data types available in .NET framework to support multiple programming languages. The other component we have is JIT compiler, just-in-time compiler. So this compiler, primarily what this compiler will do is, this compiler actually will convert your MSIL code into the operating system level code. Just-in-time compiler. Just-in-time, why I am calling this just-in-time is, whenever I go and click on that, then only it will get executed. Just-in-time. When I go and click on the button, just in time, that will go and convert. Whenever I click on button, that time it will go and convert my instructions into operating system level instructions. Just in time compiler. So your MSIL code, whatever you have seen here, is going to be converted to the operating system level format by the just in time compiler. JIT compiler. Whenever I go and click on this, immediately just-in-time compiler will go and execute this code, convert this code into the operating system level format. So that is nothing but the just-in-time compiler. It will convert your MSIL code into the machine level format. So CLR is a combination of CLS, CTS and just-in-time compiler. There is a code which runs directly on the operating system without using the CLR. That code is called as a unsafe code. Like C++ code, directly pointers and all memory references you are going and using, and run without using the CLR. You are trying to run directly on the operating system, or directly you are converting your code into the operating system level code. That is called as a unsafe code. Whichever the code which uses the CLR as a runtime, or whichever the code which runs through CLR is called as a safe code, and without CLR intervention, if any code which is getting executed, that is called as a unsafe code. But in our C#.NET, it's C#.NET or VB.NET code, whatever you are writing, that is a safe code because it uses the CLR for the runtime. So that is about that. But when you come and see now, finally, if you see your C#.NET application or any .NET application, there are two steps: source code compiling into MSIL, and then MSIL to OS level, operating system. Two-step process. This MSIL to operating system will happen at the runtime when you are running your application. The source code to MSIL format conversion will happen when you compile your application. This two step. When you compile your source code will be converted either into .exe format, executable format, or DLL format. This MSIL, the CLR will execute both exe and DLL and convert it into the operating system level code. This is the whole about the .NET framework. So any doubts here? The .NET framework architecture 2.0.
No.
Akshita, any doubts here? When you go for your interviews, maybe they start with the .NET framework and they will ask you what is CLR, what is CTS, what is CLS, what is just-in-time compiler, what is the use of just-in-time compiler, what is the difference between a normal compiler and just-in-time compiler. These are the interview questions which you can expect on the .NET framework. So is it a CLR is different for VB.NET and C#.NET, or it's a common? Is there any specific CLR for VB.NET and specific CLR for C#.NET? No, it's a common for all. Whatever you have in framework, it's a common for all programming languages. It's not language specific. So Akshita, any doubts here? Then we'll move on to the programming.
Nothing, sir. Yeah, I'm clear, sir.
Kishore?
No doubt, sir.
Yeah, Noble is also listening with me, sir.
Okay, no problem. Noble, any doubts?
No, sir, nothing else till now.
Okay. Katyusha?
Nothing, sir.
Yeah, you have to go through, like, whenever we complete with this topic, you have to note down, or maybe you are recording it or not, I don't know. Maybe Mahesh is recording it. These are the bullet points you have to know. What is CLS? What is CLR? What is CTS? What is base class library? These are like the common questions you can expect from the .NET framework. Sorry, actually some this canvas is going on. Maybe you are hearing some background noise. The GHMC elections are going on. Okay. Then we'll move on to, this is a .NET framework, introduction to .NET framework, and then we'll move on to, like, as we discussed yesterday, to go and develop either it is a desktop based applications or web applications. You need to learn first C#.NET, then only you will be able to go and develop either it is a desktop or web based. Even for web based applications, you need to know about C#.NET, because everything logic and coding and everything you are writing it in C#.NET only. Now we'll move on to C#.NET, like C#. Let us start with C#. It's same like with the .NET framework. So first of all, tell me what is C. I think someone knows about C already. Arun, I think he didn't join today. So C. What is C? Kishore.
Sorry, I don't know any.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you are the, like, okay, got it. Akshita, what is C? What is English?
It's a language.
Sir.
It's a language. So interact with, like, each other. Telugu, Hindi, all these are like languages only. But when it comes to C, is a programming language which is meant for the machines or computers, I can say. If I want to interact with you, there is a language. If I want to interact with a machine, I have a language. So C is a programming language.
Yeah, programming language.
C is a programming language which is used to develop applications where internally which goes and interacts with your machine and do some actions, do some calculations or something. So C is a programming language. What is C++?
Same programming language.
It's the same programming language, but there is a difference between a C and a C++. One is a procedure-oriented programming and one is a structure-oriented programming. Same like we have different languages with different formats. If you go to remote areas and like in forests and all, they don't have any grammar. They have some kind of language they speak. They don't have written like they don't have writing and all. That is one kind of language. C++, this is one kind of language. Both are programming languages which is used to write the applications or which is used to develop the application. One is a procedure oriented and the one is a structure oriented programming. And one is object oriented. Like if you go back, there is a C++ is object oriented. We'll come back to that. What is object oriented and all. So we'll go back to Pascal, COBOL. That is the first programming languages we have. COBOL. Before C, we have a COBOL, Pascal, Fortran. Those are almost 50 years back, 40 years back technologies. COBOL is one type of programming language where you go and write all procedures. Only methods you will be writing and calling. And the execution will start from the first line, top-down approach. Line 1, line 2, line 3, like that. If you have written 100 lines of code, the code will get executed from the first line, second line, third line, top-down approach it will go. And you will write all the code based on the procedures. There is some drawback. There are some drawbacks with that. Then they moved on to the procedure structure-oriented programming. So this procedure-oriented and structure-oriented programming, I don't want to go in depth and discuss because it's out of market now. We don't need. So these programming languages, when you are developing the code, there are a lot of complexities with this structure-oriented and procedure-oriented programming languages. Simple example I want to give you for this, like structure-oriented and programming-oriented. Maybe in your childhood, when you are in India, when you go to schools and all, like everybody knows about school. I want to take a best example of school. Let us say you have first class, second class, third class. All the students are there in your school. You are making them sitting in a big classroom and you are teaching. All the students are sitting in one big classroom. First class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class, sixth class, up to 10th, I have all the students sitting in one location and I am teaching it to them. Suppose roll number 5, I am calling roll number 5. Which roll number 5 has to represent? First class, second class, or which class? Let us say I am calling, let us say Kishore. Maybe 5 Kishores are there across all the school. I don't know which Kishore will represent. And one side I am teaching English and the other guy is teaching Hindi. Some guy is teaching some other language. A lot of complexity when you imagine what is happening here now. In the school, if I make them to sit in one big classroom and write ask them to teach, or what is happening now, imagine what is this situation. It's a lot of complexity, lot of disturbance. So this is the scenario with your structure oriented and procedure oriented programming. So you will be writing entire code in one block. Maybe you are writing it in different blocks, but when you club it together, it's coming into one single module, one single big block. When you are running also, it's a bulk application. And where, like when you go for a distributed application development, like one application will be developing by multiple people. Let us say 50 people are working on the same application. Suppose one guy has declared a variable called int a. and the other guy also declared int a, and other guy also declared int a. When I club all this code together, there are 3 int a's. Then my compiler will not run. Compiler will give an error saying that boss, 3 int a's are declared, 1 is sufficient. I cannot able to compile, there is a complexity. To avoid that, I have to know what others are writing, what others are declaring. Everybody has to know what other 10 people are doing. So there is a lot of coding complexity with your Elliott structure oriented and procedure oriented programming. To overcome that, we introduced a programming model called as object oriented programming. OOPS concepts. Object oriented programming model. So it simplifies our life, like developer life. You don't need to worry about the others, what others are writing the code and all, what others are declaring, what others are writing. You have individual coding blocks you can declare. We'll go back to school again and we'll solve that problem first. School problem we'll solve and then we'll come to our programming. So what did we do? Instead of making them sitting all together in a single classroom, what did we do? We will go to Akshita. What is the idea which you want to give?
Nothing.
See, instead of, like, if we know the drawback with making them sitting in one big classroom, all students, first class, second class, third class, 10th class. So what is the solution you want to give?
We have to divide.
We have to divide, exactly. What did we do? It's a simple thing, right? I divided classroom. I divided the entire thing into classrooms, different rooms, and I name it as standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, standard 4, standard 10. And I am making all the students together, like first class students, all the first class students should go and sit in first class, second class. So I divided them into blocks. In our coding also, we go and divide them into logical blocks. Instead of writing the code at one place, we go and divide them into the logical blocks. That means we are binding them together into logical blocks. First class students, I am binding it into first class. Second class, I am binding it into second class. Third class, like 10th class. I am binding into the individual blocks. Arjun, I think it's a problem with your speaker because only you are facing that problem. Okay, we divided them into the logic like blocks. The same way, instead of writing everything in one place, you go and divide them into logical units and bind the related things. Like let us say I have, when I'm developing my application, I have different modules like financials, payrolls. Like let us say I have different individual modules, individual blocks. Let us say payroll, employee related methods and employee related coding. I'll go and put it into employee block. There is a manager. All the code which is related to manager functionality, I'll go and put into a block called as manager. I'll bind it into manager block. So this kind of binding is nothing but called as encapsulation. So that is the first principle of object-oriented programming. Encapsulating, what does it mean? Binding up or wrapping up the data and methods into logical units. So school, whatever we applied in school is the same thing. We applied encapsulation only. We put all the related students, means all the first class students into one classroom. That is called as encapsulation. Okay. The second part. When I divide them into logical blocks, individual blocks, there is a drawback with that, because let us say if I made all together into one classroom, then I don't need to have 10 blackboards. If I have 2 or 3 blackboards, that is enough. I can share it because everything is within the same. same block. But now I divided them. What I need to do is, now I have to go and put Blackboard in each and every classroom. The same way in our programming language also, let us say you have a module called payroll block. Payroll logical block you are writing. There is a code which you have written to calculate the PF, Provident Fund of an employee. Let us say there is a salary module. Salary related code you are writing. Salary calculation you are writing. So this is now, these are individual blocks. So you cannot go and use that PF here. If at all you want, you have to go and write again the same logic. PF related logic again you have to write. So writing the same logic, same code again is a drawback or advantage? It's a drawback. Why do I need? Already I have a, it's a drawback. It's a PF already is there somewhere. Why do I need to write again? Reuse it. That you can achieve. That is nothing but called as inheritance. You don't need to write again. Just you go and apply a concept called as inheritance. That means extending properties from one block to other block. Don't buy the Blackboard again. Whenever they are not using it, or go and get the permission and take that Blackboard and keep it. No, temporarily use it. So extending from one logical block to another logical block is called as inheritance. Reusability. Now there is a drawback with reuse of inheritance also. Like here, there is a calculation of PF, there is a calculation of ESI, there is a calculation of traveling allowance, bearer allowance. I have all these methods. When I go and use inheritance, when I go and extend salary from payroll, when I go and use payroll, extend the payroll to salary class, you know what happens is, I'll get all PF, ESI, TA, DA. But I don't want all those. Even though if you don't want, no way. Once you take a permission, once you extend it, you have to take everything. No option I can restrict. So again the problem. Again the drawback started. Unnecessarily extending everything. Unnecessarily giving everything. I am going for only one like piece of chalk or something, but he is telling no, I won't give you a piece of chalk, you have to take everything. Blackboard, duster, everything you have to take it. It's again a drawback. It's a bulk again. It's a memory wastage for me. How to overcome this? Then we have a concept called as abstraction. By using abstraction, I can hide these members. So if I go and declare it as a private or something, there is some logic we can implement and hide this. That means these members will not go. I can hide those members. The data hiding is called as abstraction. Only I want PF. I don't want remaining. So that what I'll do is I'll go and hide these members. Public, private, protected. There are access modifiers, method overloading, overriding. That will come in future. But as an introduction, abstraction is nothing but the data hiding. You want to hide the members from inheritance or from extension. That time you go and use a concept called as abstraction. So here in our object-oriented programming language, everything is an object. Everything is an object. Payroll class if you want, payroll functionalities if you want, you have to go and declare an object for that. Once you go and declare an object, internally in the system what happens is, it will allocate pointers for each and every member of that class or that logical block. Now here total I have PF, one is ESI, TA, DA. Total how many pointers? 4 pointer memories will be allocated in the system. 4 pointers will be allocated in my system. So let us say I have a PF with different calculation, PF with some PF method with different functionalities. PF with 10% I want, PF with 12% rate of interest I want, 12% rate I want, PF with special PF I want. So now tell me how many pointers will be allocated for payroll class, payroll block. Every member will get 1 pointer in the memory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Total together 7 pointers. Right? 7 members are there, so 7 pointers will get allocated.
Okay.
Suppose if I have one more member, PF manager. Let us say maybe special PF for the manager I am giving.
Hello.
Hey, Mahesh.
Hello.
Mahesh, are you there?
Sir, I can't see the screen.
Yeah, right. I think Mahesh is the new presenter. I don't know how it went to Mahesh.
Yeah.
Could you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay. Now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So every member inside your block will get 1 pointer in the memory. I know that PF calculation is same. PF, even though logic is different, same. But if I go and declare with the different names, it is allocating different pointers. Instead of that, what I can do is PF of, let us say, I'll pass it as a rate. I don't want to declare all this. PF of rate comma salary, like I'll change the parameters. I'll use the same name. I won't go and differentiate with the name. Name is same, but the signature I am changing it. I'll use the same name. Something double sal something. Just I am changing the signature of the, I won't declare it as manager. This is also PF only.
HR.
Here some parameters I pass it. Now tell me how many pointers will get allocated.
Say it only.
Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's 8.
8. I told you for different members, different pointers will get allocated. First itself.
Yeah.
But PF is same right now. Even though you declared it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, but the member name is same, right?
Yeah.
So now what happens is if I go and use the same name with a different behavior, it is only 1. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Only 4 pointers will get allocated. Because the name is same. All are PFs only. But how to differentiate? I told you first itself, differentiate with the parameters. If I pass only rate to PF, this method will get executed. If I pass rate and salary to the method, this will get executed. This functionality will get executed. Only salary if I pass, salary will get executed. PF, this will get executed. Based on my input parameters, the behavior is changing. Method is only one, but the behavior is changing. So that is called as polymorphism. Polymorphism. This is nothing but the polymorphism. Poly means many behaviors. One method behaving in with different functionalities, different logics. Method is same, but it's acting in different ways based on the input which you are giving. That is called as a polymorphism. Encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism. These four are called as principles of object-oriented programming. Principles of object-oriented programming. Any programming language which satisfies these four principles are called as object-oriented programming language. C++ is an object-oriented programming language. Do you have encapsulation in C++? Yes. I can go and use classes. Class, employee, class is a keyword actually. Class is a logical block in C++ where you can bind it. Yes, encapsulation is there. Inheritance. Yes, you can extend the properties from one class to another class in C++. You can avoid the repeatance of the coding. Yes, inheritance. Abstraction. Yes, you have public, private, protected, all these members. Private, only within that particular block you can use it. Public, anywhere you can use it. Protected, within the class and from the derived class you can use it. So that is called as abstraction. Polymorphism. Yes, you can go and declare the method name same with the same method name, but you can change the behavior of the method. Yes, polymorphism is there. That is why we call C++ as a object-oriented
Language.
If you go to C, it won't allow you to declare two members with the same name. C, it won't allow you, but whereas C++ will allow you to create two methods with the same name, but behavior will change. Suppose let us say here polymorphism is like name is same, Srinivas. Let us say one guy is a mechanical engineer and one guy is a software engineer. Srinivas, mechanical engineer. Srinivas with mechanical engineering profession will come into picture. Srinivas, software engineer, he will come into picture. So name is same. Person is like, but the behavior is different. Each person will be doing different functionality. That is called as a polymorphism. Yes, that can be done in C++. So these four principles are satisfied in C++. That is why it is called as a object-oriented programming language. Similarly, C# is also a object-oriented programming language. What is C#? C# is a object-oriented programming language. What is object-oriented programming language? Any programming language which satisfies the four principles called encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism is called as object-oriented programming.
Orientation language.
What is encapsulation? Binding of the data and methods into logical blocks is called as encapsulation. First encapsulation, whenever encapsulation comes, you have to remember the school. First standard, second standard, all the first standard students are going and sitting in first standard classroom. Yes, this is nothing but the binding. Binding or wrapping up of the data and methods into logical blocks is called as a encapsulation. Then what is inheritance? Extending the properties from, extending the members from one logical block to another logical block is called as inheritance. Abstraction. Hiding the members is called as a abstraction. I don't want to go all the members to the derived class or a derived logical block. That is called as a abstraction. What is polymorphism? One member behaving with the different behaviors or different
logics.
Logics with the different logics is called as a polymorphism. Clear about object-oriented principles? Akshita, is it clear? What is object-oriented principles and object-oriented programming language? Arun, can you able to hear me now? Arun? Arun, can you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. Are you clear with the OOPS concepts?
Yes, sir.
Encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism. This is a common process. When you go for interview with 3 plus, 4 plus, 5 plus, up to 5 plus, they'll ask you what is object-oriented principles. What is encapsulation? How do we achieve it in C#.NET? What is inheritance? How do we achieve it in C#? Like everything, they will compare it. So, did you use it in your applications? Did you use object-oriented principles in your application? Yes. C#.NET. If you develop your application using C#, Day to day we are using object-oriented principles. Day to day we are using encapsulation. We are using inheritance. So they
Sir,
have
can
to-
sir,
go
can
ahead.
you explain? Hello,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
sir, can you explain inheritance once again?
Inheritance
told-
is simple.
Yeah, you
Right.
told that one block into another block, but I didn't understand what you said.
Yeah, right. Let us say there is one
Can you provide an example
code
for the
which is related to payroll you are writing.
Yeah.
Payroll related coding you are writing.
Yes, sir.
You have written logic for PF calculation.
Okay, sir.
There is a other block called as class HR. HR related functionalities you are writing.
Yeah.
So here in HR also, let us say I want to send your offer letter. Let us say I want to send your offer letter, but based on the basic, I want to calculate the PF and all.
Okay.
So now this payroll is the individual block and HR is the individual block now. If at all I want to write the logic, I have to write the PF related logic again. And that's it, right?
Yes, sir.
If I want it in HR, I have to write it again. Entire code I have to write it again.
Okay.
But do I need it actually?
I think.
It's already there. Suppose it's 100 lines of code you are writing. 100 lines of logic you are writing. Unnecessarily you are wasting time for 100 lines of code again.
Yeah, one time is enough, I think.
So, but there is these are two different blocks now. You
Yeah.
set the border, right? You set the border for this. This is my border and this is my border. You cannot go and use it. By extending or by inheriting from payroll, you can use that member without writing the logic again.
Okay.
If you extend it, if you extend HR from payroll, all the members of payroll will become as a HR member. It's simply like inheriting the properties from the parents. Parent to child relationship. If my father is having car, I want to use it. No need. Just you are already inherited member, so you cannot use it. You can use it. But outsiders cannot take that car, right? You are privileged. The same way, payroll already you have a PF logic, PF related code already you have written it, but you don't need to write it again because already it's there in payroll. Just go and inherit HR from the payroll. This is called as a inheritance. Extending or inheriting properties from one class to another class, or one logical block to another logical block. Clear now, Arun? I don't know who asked this. Akshita.
Yeah.
Arun? Are you clear now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm clear, sir.
This inheritance again, we have maybe whoever knows about basics about C# and C++, they may go and think, okay, inheritance, we have multiple, single, multi-level. Yes, we have that. That we will come back in our programming. Inheritance is of different types. Single inheritance, that means one logical block to exactly another logical block. Multi-level inheritance, A to B, B to C, C to D, like that, multi-level. Multiple inheritance, inheriting C from A and B. Two bases and one derived. That is multiple. Hierarchical, hybrid, we have it. We will discuss it when it comes to our C#.NET programming. So at high level, this is called as inheritance. Extending the properties or inheriting the properties from one block to another block. Kishore, are you clear?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Pratyusha and Noble, are you clear?
Yeah, I'm okay, sir.
So just you need to go and read about these concepts. Day to day, I'm telling you, I'm going a little bit slow. Like first 15 days, like I'll go a little bit slow because we have some people who are not a technical guys. So we'll go a little bit slow. But interview point of view, these are fundamentals, whatever I'm discussing. If you are perfect in fundamentals, like if you are perfect in object-oriented programming, in one programming language, you know how to implement these all principles in C#. Tomorrow you can go and read yourself Java. You learn Java yourself. These are all fundamentals. See, .NET framework. In Microsoft, it is called as a .NET framework. If you go for Java, go to Java, it's a JRE. Java runtime environment. It's the same. There also we have CLR kind of thing. That is, there we call it as a JLR, Java language runtime. Object-oriented principles. Either you go to C, either you go to C++, Java, or .NET. It's same. Encapsulation. In our C#.NET, we declare that as a class. Class is one encapsulation example. In Java also, it's a class only. So if you are perfect in fundamentals, today you can learn C#.NET. You can extend it to Java core. It's not required. If at all there is any requirement, you can go and read it easily. You can learn it easily. Now go and read about this. What is .NET framework? What is CLS? What is TTS? What is just-in-time compiler? What is base class library? And what is object-oriented programming? What is encapsulation? What is inheritance? What is polymorphism? And what is MSIL? You can get more knowledge about MSIL. What is Microsoft Intermediate Language? What is DLL? What is EXE? What is executable file? What is DLL file? You can learn it. Just you can go and Google it. Just put it Google. DLL. Press enter. It will give you what is DLL. EXE. Enter. You will get what is EXE. MSIL. Enter. You will get all the MSIL related information. So C#.NET is nothing but a object-oriented programming language. Why C#.NET? Why not C or C++? Yes, we have advantages over C and C++. In C#.NET, we will go and discuss that tomorrow. I told you first itself, after finishing our class, every day you have to ask yourself why, what, where, how. So today we discussed about object-oriented programming. Why object-oriented programming? There is a lot of coding complexity with the earlier programming models. That is why we moved on to object-oriented programming language. What is object-oriented programming? Any programming language which satisfies 4 principles, whatever 4 I mentioned here, is called as object-oriented. Then where do we use this object-oriented programming? That is what you are going to learn. How to use it, where to use it, that's what you are going to learn in our next classes. Hope today's class is clear for everyone. Okay, I think Mahesh is recording the session, so maybe he will be sending it to you, the recorded session. And you can ask me, don't feel shy or something like it's a basic question and I cannot ask her something. So everybody starts learning English from alphabets A only. If anybody knows A, B, C, D, E, then it's an advantage only. But come back to me, I am ready to tell you even it's the basic. And what is operating system also I can explain that. But you need to support, like other people may feel bored. Maybe after the class or before the class, or you can get back to me on that. Okay, once we start with C#.NET, I will be sending you the course content, C#.NET. This is what is my course content, but if anyone come across any other topics, they can come back to me and include that. I think whatever I included is more than sufficient. It is like mostly I included all the real-time concepts and the course concepts which I get it. If you come across any other topics, you can send it to me. We'll include it in our course, and maybe in next batches they get the same thing. But for your real time, these are the topics which are enough. Up to .NET remoting we are going to discuss. If you see my course content here, so fundamentals we'll go and learn using a .NET frameworks, variables, data types. This is like learning a ABCDs. First three will be like learning ABCDs, then words, then paragraphs, then books, writing the stories and all. This is the thing. So this part we have seen already. Introduction or overview of .NET. .NET Framework 2.0 I explained you. After 2.0 we have 3.0, 3.5, 4.0, 4.5. That we will see. That I'll explain you. Those are only features which are added. We'll see that anyway. I'll show you the image and what are all the features added. Base is the framework 2.0. On top of that, we are adding features and we are calling it as a new framework. We'll continue tomorrow. It would be the same time, tomorrow 8 o'clock my time. Yeah, definitely I'll mail the content tomorrow once I am done with that, giving an introduction to other topics as well. After explaining the other frameworks, I'll send this course content. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody has any doubts?
Where can I get the software?
Yes, you can go and download it from Microsoft. Just put it as Visual Studio 2013
Okay.
Express Edition, or you can say Ultimate.
Okay.
It's a 45 days free trial version. After 45 days, you need to manipulate your system, like go and change your system date to past date so that it won't change. Like after 45 days, go and put your date again back to the 45 days back date. Then you can continue like that until we finish our course. Just you go and type Visual Studio 2013. Helping you.